Look around your life right now. How many projects are sitting there half-finished? That book you started writing 6 months ago. The online course you bought but only completed 2 modules of. The workout program you began with so much enthusiasm but abandoned after 3 weeks. The business idea you researched extensively but never launched. The room you started organizing but somehow looks worse than when you began. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. In fact, you're part of the majority. Studies show that over 90% of people never finish the goals they set for themselves. That's not a typo. 9 out of 10 people are chronic non-finishers. But here's what's fascinating. It's not because they lack talent, intelligence, or even motivation. There are specific psychological patterns that trap people in this cycle of starting, but never finishing. And once you understand these patterns, you can break free from them forever. Today, I'm going to reveal the real reasons why you never finish what you start. These aren't the obvious answers like lack of discipline or poor time management. I'm talking about the hidden psychological forces that sabotage your progress without you even realizing it. More importantly, I'm going to give you a step-by-step system to become someone who actually completes what they begin. This isn't just about productivity or getting more done. When you become someone who finishes what they start, your entire identity shifts. You start seeing yourself as capable, reliable, and powerful. You build unshakable confidence because you have evidence that you can follow through on your commitments. Other people begin to see you differently too, as someone who gets results, someone they can count on, someone who makes things happen. The first reason you don't finish is what I call the shiny object syndrome. Your brain is wired to be attracted to novelty, and starting something new gives you an incredible dopamine hit. It's exciting to imagine all the possibilities, to research and plan, to buy the materials or sign up for the course. The problem is that this excitement naturally fades as the initial novelty wears off and the real work begins. Most people interpret this fading excitement as a sign that they're no longer interested in the project or that it wasn't meant to be. So they abandon it and start looking for the next exciting thing to begin. This creates a vicious cycle where you become addicted to starting but never experience the deep satisfaction that comes from completion. The second reason is perfectionism, but not in the way you might think. Most people believe perfectionism means having high standards, but perfectionism is actually fear disguised as standards. When you're a perfectionist, you're terrified that your finished work won't live up to the perfect vision in your head, so you keep tweaking, adjusting, and improving instead of declaring it done. Perfectionists often abandon projects right before completion, because that's when the gap between their vision and reality becomes most apparent. They'd rather leave the project unfinished with its potential intact than finish it and face the reality that it's not perfect. This fear of imperfection becomes a prison that keeps you from ever experiencing the joy of completion. The third reason you don't finish is poor project scoping and unrealistic expectations. When you start a project, your brain tends to underestimate how long it will take and how much effort it will require. Psychologists call this the planning fallacy. You imagine the best-case scenario where everything goes smoothly, you stay motivated throughout, and you don't encounter any obstacles. But real projects are messy. They take longer than expected. You hit roadblocks you didn't anticipate, and your initial enthusiasm inevitably wanes. When reality doesn't match your optimistic expectations, you become discouraged and frustrated. You start to believe that you're not cut out for this type of work, when in reality, you just set unrealistic expectations from the beginning. The fourth reason is what I call middle fatigue. Every project has 3 phases: the exciting beginning, the messy middle, and the rewarding end. The beginning feels great because everything is new and full of possibility. The end feels great because you can see the finish line and anticipate completion. But the middle is where projects go to die. In the middle, the novelty has worn off, progress feels slow, and the end still seems far away. This is where you're most likely to encounter obstacles, make mistakes, and question whether the project is worth continuing. Most people don't understand that the middle is supposed to be hard. They interpret the difficulty as a sign that they should quit, when it's actually a normal part of any meaningful endeavor. The fifth reason is lack of external accountability. When you start a project in private, there's no external pressure to complete it. If you abandon it, the only person who knows is you, and you can always rationalize the decision. You tell yourself you lost interest, you didn't have time, or you found something better to work on. Without external accountability, your brain will always choose the path of least resistance. When the project becomes challenging or boring, there's no external force compelling you to push through. You need something or someone outside of yourself to help you maintain commitment when your internal motivation wavers. The sixth reason is what I call outcome obsession. Most people focus entirely on the end result rather than the process of getting there. They're motivated by the idea of having written a book, not by the daily practice of writing. They're excited about being in shape, not about the habit of exercising regularly. This creates a problem because the outcome is often months or years away, while the process has to happen every day. When you're obsessed with the outcome, every day that you don't see dramatic progress feels like failure. You lose motivation because the gap between where you are and where you want to be seems impossibly large. You start to doubt whether you'll ever reach your goal, and this doubt becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now that you understand why you don't finish, let me show you how to change it. The first strategy is to shift from outcome-focused to process-focused thinking. Instead of obsessing over the end result, fall in love with the daily actions that lead to that result. If you want to write a book, focus on becoming someone who writes every day. If you want to get in shape, focus on becoming someone who exercises regularly. When you focus on the process, every day becomes a victory because you showed up and did the work. You're not waiting months or years to feel successful. You feel successful every time you complete your daily commitment. This creates sustainable motivation because you're getting frequent positive reinforcement rather than waiting for one big payoff at the end. The second strategy is to break large projects into micro-commitments. Instead of committing to write a book, commit to write for 15 minutes every day. Instead of committing to learn Spanish, commit to practice Spanish for 10 minutes every morning. These micro-commitments are so small that your brain doesn't resist them, but they're consistent enough to create real progress over time. The key is to make your commitment so easy that you can't say no, even on your worst days. If 15 minutes feels like too much, make it 5 minutes. If 5 minutes feels like too much, make it 2 minutes. The goal isn't to maximize the time you spend, it's to maximize the consistency. Consistency trumps intensity every single time. The third strategy is to create external accountability systems. Tell other people about your project and ask them to check in on your progress regularly. Join a group of people working on similar goals. Hire a coach or find an accountability partner. Make the cost of quitting higher than the cost of continuing. When you know that someone else is expecting you to follow through, you're much more likely to push through difficult moments. The fear of letting others down or looking unreliable becomes a powerful motivator that kicks in when your internal motivation fails. The fourth strategy is to plan for the middle. Expect that you'll hit a point where the project becomes difficult and you want to quit. This isn't a sign that you should abandon the project. It's a predictable part of the process. When you know it's coming, you can prepare strategies to get through it. Create a list of reasons why you started the project that you can review when motivation is low. Identify specific actions you'll take when you feel stuck or frustrated. Plan rewards for reaching intermediate milestones, not just the final goal. Having a plan for the difficult middle phase makes it much more likely that you'll push through to completion. The fifth strategy is to embrace good enough and ship your work. Most projects are abandoned not because they're incomplete, but because they're not perfect. Set a clear definition of done before you start, and stick to it, even if the final result isn't exactly what you envisioned. Remember that done is better than perfect. A finished project that's 80% of your vision is infinitely more valuable than a perfect project that never gets completed. You can always improve and iterate on finished work, but you can't improve work that never gets done. The sixth strategy is to track your progress visually. Create a simple system to mark your daily progress. It could be checking off days on a calendar, moving marbles from one jar to another, or using a habit tracking app. This visual representation of your consistency creates motivation and momentum. Seeing your streak of completed days creates psychological pressure to maintain it. Nobody wants to break a long streak, so each day you complete your commitment makes it more likely that you'll complete it the next day too. This is called the sunk cost fallacy when it works against you, but when applied to positive habits, it works in your favor. The seventh strategy is to celebrate small wins along the way. Most people only celebrate when they complete the entire project, but this means going months or years without any positive reinforcement. Instead, celebrate the process. Celebrate showing up for a week straight. Celebrate reaching 25% completion. Celebrate overcoming a specific obstacle. These celebrations don't have to be big or expensive. They just need to acknowledge your progress and effort. The act of celebrating reinforces the positive behavior and makes you more likely to continue. It also helps you maintain perspective about how far you've come, rather than only focusing on how far you still have to go. The eighth strategy is to design your environment for success. Remove friction from the actions you want to take and add friction to the actions you want to avoid. If you want to write every morning, set up your computer and notes the night before so you can start immediately. If you want to exercise, lay out your workout clothes and have your equipment ready. At the same time, remove temptations that might derail your progress. If you get distracted by your phone, leave it in another room during work time. If you're tempted to skip workouts, don't keep junk food easily accessible. Your environment should support your commitment, not undermine it. The ninth strategy is to find ways to make the process enjoyable. If the daily actions required for your project are pure drudgery, you're unlikely to stick with them long enough to finish. Look for ways to gamify the process, work with others, or connect the daily actions to things you already enjoy. Listen to podcasts while exercising, work in coffee shops if that energizes you, or find a workout partner to make exercise more social. The more you can associate positive feelings with the daily process, the easier it becomes to maintain consistency over the long term. The final strategy is to start with smaller projects to build your finishing muscle. If you've never completed a major project, don't start with writing a novel or launching a business. Begin with projects that you can finish in a few weeks or months. Complete a short online course, organize one room in your house, or commit to a 30-day challenge. Each time you finish something, you build evidence that you're the type of person who follows through. This changes your identity and increases your confidence to tackle bigger projects. You start to believe in your ability to finish what you start because you have a track record of doing exactly that. Now, let me give you a specific action plan to implement these strategies. First, choose one project that you've been putting off or that you started but never finished. Make sure it's something that genuinely matters to you, not something you think you should do. Next, break this project down into the smallest possible daily action. What could you do every single day for 15 minutes that would move this project forward? Don't worry about whether 15 minutes is enough. Focus on what you can sustain consistently. Create an accountability system. Tell at least one person about your commitment and ask them to check in with you weekly. Set up a visual tracking system to mark your daily progress. Plan a small celebration for when you complete 1 week, 2 weeks, and 1 month of consistent action. Most importantly, commit to this process for at least 30 days before evaluating whether to continue. 30 days is long enough to get past the initial resistance and start building real momentum, but short enough that it doesn't feel overwhelming. Remember, the goal isn't just to finish this one project. It's to transform your identity from someone who starts things but doesn't finish them to someone who consistently follows through on their commitments. This identity shift will impact every area of your life, from your career to your relationships to your personal goals. The difference between people who finish what they start and people who don't isn't talent, luck, or circumstances. It's having systems and strategies that support completion rather than abandonment. You now have those strategies. The only question is whether you'll implement them. Your future self is determined by the actions you take today. Every time you follow through on a commitment, you're casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. Every time you quit when things get difficult, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who doesn't finish what they start. Which identity do you want to reinforce? The choice is yours, and the time to make it is right now. Pick your project, break it down, set up your systems, and start building your reputation as someone who finishes what they start. Your future self will thank you for the decision you make today.